So BCP and China Aviation was a case about an oil trade financed by the bank, BCP. BCP provided financing to Zenrock to purchase an oil cargo from China Aviation under a letter of credit. Now, as is usual in oil trading, the letter of credit allowed for payment against the presentation of a payment letter of indemnity, an LOI, instead of the usual, which is the presentation of the actual shipping documents. In this case, China Aviation presented an LOI, and in that LOI, it made certain representations to the bank, which are also fairly common. One of these representations was about the existence, validity, and authenticity of the original shipping documents. Now, the bank paid against the presentation of this LOI and wasn't reimbursed by Zenrock. So it turned around to China Aviation for recovery. And the basis on which it did so was by arguing that the representations that China Aviation made in the LOI were fraudulent. One of BCP's key arguments was that China Aviation had made a fraudulent misrepresentation in its LOI as to the existence, validity, and authenticity of the shipping documents. And a key angle on the basis of which it pursued this argument was that the sale from China Aviation to Zenrock was a sham.
So a sham transaction, how did that come about?
Yeah, so BCP argued that China Aviation's sale to Zenrock was a sham because the oil was in fact being traded in a separate parallel chain. Petco sold the oil to Zenrock and Zenrock sold it on to Petrolimex. And BCP argued that, since the oil was being traded by separate parties altogether, China Aviation's sale to Zenrock must be a sham. It couldn't have been a genuine sale. Now, the High Court did not buy that argument. It found that the two sales chains were not, in fact, mutually exclusive. Petrolimex sold to Zenrock, and before Zenrock sold on to Petco sold to Zenrock, and before Zenrock sold to Petrolimex, it created an other chain which was equally legitimate. It was a circle.
Right, okay.
So Zenrock sold the cargo to an intermediate seller. That started the other chain. And that other chain ended with Zenrock buying the cargo back from China Aviation.
Right. So just because there were two trades doesn't mean that one trade is necessarily fake.
Absolutely.
The circle could be part of the original linear trade.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
So the court is saying just because there are two trades doesn't mean one's fake. But surely the court also would look at the actions of China Aviation in the same way that Winson was looked at as to whether it was reckless, whether it actually believed the trade was real or not. Was that a similar sort of inquiry with China Aviation?
Yes, definitely. The court also looked at China Aviation's other conduct. China Aviation had conducted due diligence on this transaction, both on the purchase leg and the sale leg. It had negotiated the terms, conducted and entered into deal recaps, conducted all the usual operational steps concerning vessel nomination, appointment of an inspector to witness the loading of the cargo, to inspect its quality and quantity. And all of these things are what you would find in a genuine oil sale. And taking all these considerations in the round, and also noting the fact that there was a legitimate commercial reason for the two parallel chains, which is for Zenrock to avail further financing for an additional, I believe, 35 days, the court concluded that the sale from China Aviation to Zenrock wasn't sham.
It fit within the chain, I suppose.
In the round, the sham theory didn't stick, and this finding was not challenged on appeal as well.